Thank you. Oh, am I supposed to be over there?
No,
I'll go
it's
over there.
wherever you
I can do
feel
whatever.
comfortable.
I'm flexible. Morning. Good morning. My name is Chris Sullivan. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to serve on your Board of Trustees. I am a short, white, gray-haired woman wearing a black and white shirt and black pants today. As part of our service here at First UU, our speakers provide brief visual descriptions of ourselves to increase our inclusivity and welcome for people with visual impairments and for anyone listening online instead of watching. If this is your first time here, we have a first-time visitor gift at the greeters table, and one of our beloved volunteers will be available in Beach Hall to share our Getting to Know UU information after the service. You can use the QR code on the screen to access a digital version of our order of service, find our donation page, and sign in to let us know that you are here. Whether you are a first-timer or a well-seasoned attendee, we invite you to come chat with us after the service to learn more about who we are and what we believe here at First UU. Please find me or another board member in Beach Hall after the service. I'd like to ask everyone to take a moment to silence your cell phone. We have a few announcements this morning. The Justice Action Ministry, or JAM, would like to invite you to two events. On Tuesday, July 30th at 8 o'clock, there is a UU the Vote webinar called Building a New Way. In just 4 years, UU the Vote has transformed into a powerful mass activation of our faith. Learn how you can contribute to justice movements by attending this webinar. The second event is our First UU Good Trouble event on August 6th. Sounds like a fun one. This is a hybrid event to start organizing the election for the election. You can help us become a Good Trouble congregation by joining us on August 6th at 7 p.m., either in the library here at First UU or online. Register for both events at the Jam table in Beach Hall after the service. And stay tuned for more good trouble, necessary trouble, coming your way.
Today's service is presented by the First UU Atheists, Skeptics, and Humanists group. ASH meets every fourth Tuesday of the month, except in December. Our programs run the gamut from science, politics, to art, to justice, to the workings of the larger community around us. Please come and join us. Now, please rise for our opening hymn, Wo Ya Ya, number 1020 in the Teal hymnal.
We are going, never lose where we're going, but we know we will, and we will gather, never lose how we will.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Penn. My usual pronoun, is she, and I am an African American woman. I invite all that are listening or participating in this program to use your imagination, your creativity, to make an image of myself in your mind. We begin this service by acknowledging that we gather on land stolen from the Adena, Hopewell, Miami, Wyandotte, Seneca, Erie, and Cayuga people, many who were forcibly moved from Ohio. We support the Native American Indian Center of Central Ohio in their Land Back NAICCO campaign. And we know that we have more to do as a community to be in solidarity and true relationship with this land and those indigenous on it. Let us learn to keep alive the stories of those who lived in this place before us. As far as we know, we are the only species that intentionally makes art and the only one that tells stories. What is your story? And when is it written? What will it say? We are all authors, and our story is being written every day of our existence. Our stories may feel individual. However, unless we are hermits, our story is interwoven with and shaped by the stories of others. We live in a grand tapestry. For good or ill, our stories inform future generations. What happened here? We hide uncomfortable truths at the risk of having those who follow repeat the mistakes of the past. Come journey with us into the world of stories. It's now time for our children to meet Nikki in the back to bring the light. The rest of us now have a moment to turn to our neighbors to introduce ourselves. What brought you here this week? You might also share a favorite story you have read and heard.
Good morning. My name is Susan. I use the pronouns she, her. I am a senior woman, tall with short gray hair, and today I'm wearing a gray top with black pants. It is now time for our children to bring in the light.
Due to a misprint in the order of service, it's not just summer, it's summer evening, and it's a Finnish folk song.
For tens of thousands of years, our ancestors gathered around the fire and both told and listened to stories. In this way, cultural identity was strengthened. Important knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. Questions about life, death, and the workings of the world were raised and discussed, and probably jokes and ribald humor caused laughter to rise up to the stars. Gather now around our own small fire and listen to our storytellers.
Thank you, Rowan, for helping light our chalice. I'm Deb Balliol. I'm a senior of average height with light brown and gray hair. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm wearing a brilliant blue shirt. This is my co-presenter, Doggy, whose pronouns are they, them. I am a 9-year-old golden brown dog puppet, and I have floppy ears, and Deb will be my voice today. Thank you, Doggy. Today we're going to talk about storytelling, and, well, I'm a story keeper. You are? I use my nose to find stories. And I smell them on trees and rocks and in the air. And yesterday, hey Rowan, yesterday I smelled a deer, and the deer had 3 little babies, and the deer was nursing the babies, and it was like 3 houses away. It was really cool, really cool. I wonder if anybody else smells their stories. I don't know. But today, I'm going to tell you what we have. We have a story called Zora the Story Keeper, and it's written by Ebony Joy Wilkins and illustrated by Dare Coulter. When I grow up, I want to be just like my Aunt Bee. She's the best storyteller I know. Aunt Bee used to teach acting classes. Sometimes she dresses up in costumes and uses funny voices when she's telling her stories. Everyone says she has a story worth telling. Each day after school, Aunt Bee reads to me from the pages of our family book while Mom and Dad are working. I learned that Grandma Jean used to coach a swimming team. Aunt Bee pulls on her swimming cap, swings a whistle around her finger, and tells that story. We also read that Grandpa Tom preached sermons in our neighborhood church in Chicago, so Aunt Bee would wear a beautiful purple robe, dabs her forehead with her white cloth. Sometimes I dress up too, and her kitchen becomes our stage. My page is near the end of the book. I think about what Aunt B will read about me. Maybe that I like making snow angels or running races with my cousins at our family reunions. Maybe she'll read that I want to play tennis like Serena and Venus. I plan to be a veterinarian and hope to visit all 54 countries in Africa one day. What's written on my page? I ask Aunt B daily. I'll give you a hint, Zora, she says. It's something we both love to do. Sometimes there's only a name or a date or a city written in our book, so we have to piece together the stories. Aunt B says I have a good memory and the gift of gab, the only two things you need to be a good storyteller. One day, the family book is open to Uncle Ted's page. But Aunt B isn't in costume. She's resting. She opens her eyes when I touch her shoulder and tells me I need to help her today. I bring over my toy soldiers and line them up on the arm of her chair. Aunt B smiles as I shout orders to my platoon, just like Uncle Ted did. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. When one of his men fell to the ground during a battle, Uncle Ted risked his life and flew him to safety. With each story, we get closer to my page. But lately, Aunt B hasn't touched her costumes. All the stories sound the same, and she's been missing words while she reads. I get scared, but she makes me promise I won't worry Uncle Ralph or Mom or Dad about it. Aunt B, what's wrong, I ask. She makes space for me at the end of the bed. Nothing, Zora, she tells me. Everything's fine. In her voice is tiny, almost a whisper, like she's far away. Ralph says the doctors want to keep an eye on Aunt B and all her levels, and I'm to tidy up the house while they're away. I dust her favorite books first, the ones written by Zora Neale Hurston. When I get to our family book, I leave it near Aunt B's pillow for when she comes home. Uncle Ralph comes back, but Aunt B isn't with him. He drops down on the sofa, wipes a tear from his eye. Miles Davis is singing about love in the background. When the doctors say I can visit, I brush Bee's hair and tell her a story about Cousin Cheryl's sewing shop in the Bronx, where she made the most glamorous beaded gowns with matching headpieces. Women came from all 5 boroughs to buy Cheryl's sew and design. Aunt B smiles proudly. I tell her stories until the nurses say it's time to let her rest. I hug her tight, but Aunt B feels soft, like one of the dolls. I kiss her forehead and tuck her blanket under her chin. Aunt B isn't coming home. There were no stories for a few days. Mom sets my sundress on the bed. I slip it on, pull my locks up into a high bun, and step into my cowgirl boots. Aunt B and Uncle Ralph's place is full of family, and everyone knows to bring a dish, a photo, and a story for our family book. Aunt B's stories were much better than the ones I hear today. I sink into Aunt B's armchair. That's where Uncle Ralph finds me after everyone goes home. Your aunt wanted you to have this, he says. There's a silver bow and a card with my name written on top. The smooth leather feels familiar, like home. I smell, the pages smell like Aunt B's pound cake. I open the cover slowly, and he hands me an envelope full of photos. On the back side of each one, I find names and dates. He says I'm to add them to the book. I turn to the last page. My story is there, just like Aunt B said it would be. And there's a message next to my name. Zora, the story keeper. I make a space for Uncle Ralph to sit. As I add photos to Aunt B's page, I start to piece her story together. The end. Wow, that's a lot of stories. Happy and sad. I like hearing them. It feels good to share our stories. I bet some of you people are good storytellers and keepers too. Well, you know, Dog, in this story, Aunt Bee is a story keeper, and she shares those stories with her niece, Zora. Together, they add them to the family history book. When Aunt Bee dies, the family book and photos are passed on by her request to Zora, so a rich history is maintained. Who keeps your stories? And now it's time for the children to return to their families or head off to morning activities. Let us remain seated as Karen plays our children out to class.
Okay, good morning. I'm Avni Varma, and my pronouns are she, her. I am a South Asian woman in my early 30s, and I have curly, dark brown hair. Our Share the Plate recipient for July is the church on Oakland Park, where they believe in God's economy of abundance and trust that there is more than enough for all of us when we are committed to caring for one another. The church on Oakland Park hosts a drive-through food pantry from the parking lot every Wednesday from 3 to 5 p.m. During the pandemic, and as inflation has gone up, the Wednesday food pantry has really stepped up, providing food for over 300 families a week, more than they had per month before. Located in South London, those who volunteer are a diverse group of people from many races and faith communities, many of whom have also received food from the pantry. Volunteers from First UU are welcome any Wednesday. Please use the QR code on the order of service. Text the number on the screen or go to our website, firstuucolumbus.org, and click the Donate tab to share as you feel called. Your gifts help build a better church and help send our story into the community and the world. Thank you. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you, Karen, for being our guest pianist today, and thank you to the Ash folks for putting together a great service. I'm the Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a woman in her early 60s with silver hair, wearing a blue dress, and I'm happy to serve as your developmental minister. We have a few joys and concerns from our community to share today. First, a joy. Kelly and Jay McNeil are celebrating their 9th wedding anniversary on August 1st, which is great. And a couple of community concerns. The Lavash Cafe, which is down High Street, experienced a hate crime recently. Somebody spray painted hate language on their doors. They're a Palestinian restaurant, and so I encourage you to go and support them by frequenting their lovely cafe. Their food is fabulous. And there'll be a caring card that you can sign to indicate to them our support. And as well, unfortunately, an LGBTQ bar, Bossy Girls Pinup Joint, was also invaded by a violent and aggressive person, and they survived because they had an active shooter plan. So we give our sympathy to these members of our community and hope that we can all be supportive.
All right. Okay. In our time for all ages, we met Aunt Bee, the keeper of her family stories, a loving task she handed down to her niece, Zora. Our stories are the chronicles of our lives. They define who we are. They can connect us with our ancestors and provide guidance for our children. For some, there are stories that they would prefer remain hidden. As we enter this moment of silence, think about your story. Who will tell it, and what will you want to say?
Hello, my name is Les Clean. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I am an atheist, an old fart. I was thinking about the signer. A lover of life, and I'm especially fond of the earth. The Old Farts is a group of men who got together, began in 2006 as several of us were retiring. Since then, our numbers have continued to expand till we have almost 20 in the group today. We get together for lunch and conversation once a week. We eat at a different restaurant each week, but we have our favorites, and so we return to those several times a year. Having lunch together every week, we soon become well acquainted and close friends. However, it was when one of our first members, John Schumacher, passed away, we realized we knew him well these last several years, but we knew virtually nothing about his earlier life. And this was true for all of us. We knew very little about each other's younger life, what they did, where they lived, their parents, their children, and nearly everything else. So we started a group of sessions we called How I Got Here. We spend one evening about every other month for one person to tell us, the rest of us, about how the many elements of his life that eventually brought him here to Columbus and to First UU. How I got here is a question each person answers in their own way. First of all, we're all here in Columbus. And for all of us, there were a series of things that happened, decisions that we made or someone else made for us that brought us here. And maybe even accidents, unintentional things that happened to us, the jobs we did or did not take. The second part of that question is related to the fact we're all here at First UU. How did we get here? None of our group grew up in a Unitarian or Universalist congregation. We all came from different religious traditions or no tradition. What happened that caused us to come here and be part of this group? For many, this involved a reevaluation of those beliefs we inherited from our parents. And for many, it was a long process in which we developed our own sets of values. It's clear that how each person got here was the result not just of a single decision, rather decisions, moves, events from some time in the past that led to many different decisions, one at a time, that brought us here. Every one of us has taken a path wildly different from all the rest. For the old farts, these How I Got Here sessions have allowed us to get to know one another much more closely. But each of us noted that as we thought about our own path to this time and place, it caused us to think about the events, people, and places that we had forgotten and not thought about for a long time. And this process of remembering actually gave us a better understanding of who we are. We were able to recall the importance of family and the decisions they made, of those persons who opened doors, who gave us encouragement, who helped us when we needed it. It reinforced the gratitude that we have for all of them. And it made us acutely aware that each small decision takes us in directions we could never predict.
Good morning. I'm Farrell Brody. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an 87-year-old white male wearing a brown checked shirt and brown trousers. Just a note before my story. On June 22nd, delegates to the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association voted overwhelmingly in favor of a resolution titled Solidarity with Palestinians. It calls for a stop to indiscriminate violence in Gaza, a permanent ceasefire, and an end to U.S. military aid to Israel, and for Unitarian Universalist congregations to join the apartheid-free communities. I'm very happy about that. Thank you. In the spring of 1962, I was living in Jerusalem, Israel, and was trying hard to decide if I wanted to stay there and accept citizenship there. I had already lived on a kibbutz on the Gaza Strip for 2 years and had been teaching English in an agricultural high school. I couldn't decide. I needed some help, but who would do that? I realized that one of my heroes, Martin Buber, the well-known Jewish philosopher, I knew was living in the city. Buber was famous all around the world for his writings and philosophy, but not popular among the Zionist leaders of Israel because he had worked for decades to promote a binational state in Israel-Palestine. I didn't believe he would have time to talk to me, but I wrote a letter to him anyway. 2 weeks later, I received an answer and an invitation to his house. I was totally surprised and excited. I went and met and listened to Buber that afternoon, and it was a turning point in my life. He told me that he didn't believe the situation there would be better for a long time, and that whatever I decided about my residence or my course of action, it should be the same if I wanted to help to improve the relationship between Israelis and Palestinians. I made my decision a year later to go back to the US, always keeping in mind what Buber had said. I have been working for Palestinian liberation and peace in Israel ever since. I am doing that today as a member of Jewish Voice for Peace and also the UUJME, Unitarian Universalists for Justice in the Middle East. If you have any interest in supporting our struggle, please let me know. Thank you.
Stories. Hi, I'm Tom Balliol. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a gracefully aging, nearly 6 foot tall, or once 6 foot tall, gray-haired white male with a beard, and I'm wearing black trousers and a very light blue shirt. As an artist and a gallery coordinator, I've come to realize that there are multiple stories that go into every painting, every work of art. First, there's the story about how an idea came into the artist's mind and became an inspiration. Then there's the story about gathering the materials necessary to give substance to that inspiration. The paint, brushes, canvas, clay, the tools, paper. Maybe there was a model, a set of reference photos, or a preliminary drawing. Then comes the next story of bringing that artwork to life. Each color choice, each brush stroke, each press of the hand into wet clay is a decision. What is the story the artist is trying to tell? If we only have the completed artwork, how can we know? What story is inspired in us by the piece, drawing from our own life experiences? The art critics and historians may tell us what an artwork means, but are their stories any more valid than our own? This type of thinking recently brought me to understand that everything has a story. Or in the words of the poet Muriel Rukeyser, The universe is made of stories, not atoms. In graduate school, I was a teaching assistant for the chair of the geology department. He created an introductory course for non-majors called Faces of the Earth. Each class comprised a slideshow of landscapes and landforms that the professor put together from decades of travel around the world. The thesis of the class was that for every natural or man-made feature that we see around us, there's an explanation for how it came to be. In other words, it has a backstory. We only need to know how to look, to ask questions, and to seek answers. And indeed, that's what science is all about. Start with an observation of a feature or phenomenon and begin asking questions. The effort to answer these questions leads to tests and analyses, resulting in more questions and more tests and observations, with an end result of an explanation of a body of the facts that were collected. A story, much like in a detective novel. However, the stories of science that science tells don't have a last page that says, "the end." Rather, it's "to be continued." All science is open-ended. A new set of measurements, a new machine that can peer deeper into the workings of nature, can rewrite a story or add a sequel. A number of years ago, on a late autumn evening, I was walking my dog on a neighborhood street. I paused a moment to look up into the ultramarine sky and had a flash of understanding. Everything I was seeing, the tree next to me, the grass, the pavement, the thoroughfare lane parked at the curb, me, my dog, and the red giant star Betelgeuse in the constellation of Orion, was once one at the time of the Big Bang. Our atoms were once part of a single whole. Billions of years of cosmic and biological evolution separate us today, but at some deep level, we are all connected. Now that's a story. And like a detective novel, the universe around us continues to serve up mysteries. And these are the best stories, because we know there will always be new episodes and new chapters. Mysteries like, where's the missing mass of the universe? Or how did life arise from non-life? Or will we ever be able to communicate with great whales? Or can we define consciousness? My story and the mystery that is me is bound up with the stories of everything and everyone around us, as is yours.
Hi, I'm Ben Sostrom. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a 6-foot-tall, middle-aged white man with blonde hair and glasses, wearing a blue and green striped button-up shirt and slacks. Our bodies tell stories. They're shaped by our experiences, scarred by time and the consequences of our actions, and like any good story, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is true of every living being, but no bodies write more detailed, vivid, and truthful epics than trees. I'm a woodworker. I repair broken furniture, but I also sculpt. And in my experience, working with wood is like listening to a really engrossing story, a tall growing tale like the kind you'd hear while sitting around a campfire. As I cut deeper, moving through each growth ring, I'm being taken a year further back in time. I encounter buried knots where long-gone branches grew and fell, rusty shadows of dissolved nails that held up a birdhouse 80 years before, deep pockets of twisted burl where a parasitic insect was born and grew and died. Occasionally, a giant beetle will emerge from a hole that had been hidden under the grain, and I have to rush the log out into the yard before it can scuttle away. That happened. Carving a sculpture requires that I listen to these stories well. I may have a plan for the piece. I'm attempting to construct detailed drawings of how I want it to work. Sometimes I even build models of how it might all come together. But ultimately, I have to follow the grain structure and let it tell me where to go. The times I don't, all I end up with is a pile of firewood and splinters in my fingers. The key is to collaborate, to listen to the story the wood is telling, to read each layer, and to add my own companion story to the structure, like a conversation, or a counterpoint, or even just footnotes. Every step, every time I switch tools and methods, I have to reread the grain structure and make changes to my plans. This can happen 30, 40 times in a piece before it reaches completion. Like a story passed down through oral tradition or a rumor passed down through the telephone game, the final piece does and does not resemble what I intended. The wood has told me a few of its stories, and I've responded in kind, and something new emerges from the mixed experience. I have ideas and questions I want to explore in my work, but when a viewer looks at one of my pieces, I don't want that meaning to be obvious to them or overpower what the wood might itself say. That meaning's for me, and for the time and place in which the piece was created. That conversation that I had with the wood can't simply be replicated or rehashed with another person whose history and experiences may be almost as different from mine as from the trees. Instead, I hope that they feel some echo of those shared stories, and by engaging with the piece, they can bring their own story to it, so they can feel some of their own kinship with the tree. Each person, just like each tree, has their own story to tell. Please remain seated as we sing our closing hymn, The Fire of Commitment, number 1028 in the Teal hymnal. In the interest of time, we will only sing verse 1.
From the dark of days remember, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits, faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul bliss, when our hunger and our passion we can call us on our way. When we live with the assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
John Crone. I'm chair of ASH, and our next meeting is August 27th, 7 p.m., right here in this church. Love to have you attend. My pronouns are he, him, but I also respond to hey, you. I'm an 80-year-old white man with thinning hair and slouching shoulders. I'm wearing a yellow dress shirt with tie and black pants. Our story time is concluded for now. And, as you've heard, our stories can take many different forms and bring us to worlds we may never have imagined. Yet, while this service is at an end, our stories go on. We shape them through the lives we live and weave them into the stories of the people we meet. These stories will continue to inform, inspire, comfort, and yes, even frighten. Carry your story out into the world. sharing with others as you will, maybe even in coffee hour. You'll even find a tree on the wall of Beach Hall where you can leave a brief story about yourself. Now, please rise as willing and able and reach out to the person next to you as we extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love. Go in peace. And now, if you please be seated as our presenters will leave the dais, and Karen inspires us with Scott Joplin.